So my talk is Will My PhD Kill Me? My name is Ryan Bevin. Before I go any further, I want to preface this by saying, even though the title is a bit dramatic, I started a PhD last year and I had loads of questions that I couldn't get the answers to. So hopefully, if you ever thought about doing a PhD, or if you would maybe consider one, hopefully you will after this talk. The idea is to clear up any questions you might have. As I say, not many people talk about it, and there was maybe one YouTuber who was able to talk about it and answer some of my questions. Okay. Quick, who am I? Ryan Bevin from Antrim, MNs in electronic engineering, 6 years work experience, PhD student at Queen's. The title of my project is beside it, and I'm a CSIT CTF coordinator, so a bit of alliteration at the end. The most important thing though is the nickname after my actual name, just if you ever want to, don't know why that would be important, but it is to me. So why start in the first place? While working in industry, I wanted to learn new skills in the evening and things like that, but by the end of the working day, I would maybe go home, do an hour in the evening, and be completely exhausted, and that fed into the rest of the week and ultimately into the weekend. So it can be quite draining if you want to do stuff like that. The PhD was a good opportunity to go back to university as well and take opportunities which I didn't take the first time. I didn't know if I was going to talk about this, but I probably will now that I'm here. I would have a bit of anxiety and things like that, and it sort of reared its head in the middle of university, and I just wouldn't have taken the opportunities at the time. Touch wood, that's sort of been addressed a bit better, and I don't think I'd have been able to do this talk either. So it's just things like that where you get to go back and retry things that you maybe weren't able to do the first time for whatever reason. The other thing as well is your research has a real world impact. I'm going to touch a bit on why that would maybe be important as compared to 9 to 5 or things like that. And one of the most important things as well is you don't need experience. It does help, but it's not required. I didn't know my area is looking at efficient RISC-V chips with future-proof security. What's not mentioned there is cryptography, post-quantum cryptography. I didn't know any cryptography before I started. So you don't need experience. You're given the time to get up to speed and learn and things like that, so don't worry about that. Common misconceptions, it's all reading. That's true, and it's not. It is at the start to get up to speed. Eventually that does settle down. You will need the time to get up to speed reading anyway, so it's not the worst thing. But the misconception is it's all reading. It's not. You need to be a genius. I'm not a genius. There's stuff I would do where I would look at myself and go, idiot. So I think everyone's like that every now and again, so you don't need to be a genius. The other thing as well is the pace of work. So it's not as... you would think the workload's massive because of the complexity of the task. It's not. It's very, if anything, it's too slow, especially if you come from industry. You're working in 2-week sprints if you're doing software, and the issues come thick and fast. This is not like that. It's so slow. It's annoyingly slow. And the working hours as well, it's quite flexible. So undergrad versus a PhD, you can kind of sum it up, or I've kind of tried to sum it up in these two pictures. So when I say undergrad, I mean from primary education all the way up to undergrad. There's a roadmap, checks and balances are in place. You're tested and you have exams and there's a syllabus up until you go to the workplace or a PhD. When you go to the PhD, it's literally the girl with the map. You're given a map, and even the map, some of the areas are fogged, some of them aren't, and you have to walk into the fogged areas to figure it out. There's literally no other way of working it. You just have to sort of take a risk in certain things. Sometimes things work out, sometimes they don't. That's just the nature of the beast. But you more or less have to forge your own path, which is a good thing because it sounds kind of scary, but it can be liberating as well. Okay, so PhD versus 9 to 5. This is probably the most recent experience I've had in terms of being able to compare it. So before I started this, I was working as a embedded software engineer. So I decided to take the leap. Most people, especially some of the speakers, so there's Mark who's sitting there, and Matthew who spoke earlier, they both came from undergrad, so they'll have different experiences from me. So in comparison to 9 to 5, this can be dependent on your supervisor. Me and my supervisor work great because she just lets me work away and get the work done. She's not over my shoulder going, when's this next bit of work coming, when's this next bit of work coming, kind of the way a team leader possibly could. In 9 to 5, there's a clear start and end time. It feels like you're tied to your desk. I maybe just was a bit too stringent with myself, but I always felt like if I went to the toilet, maybe you were being watched, because that's going to cost the company money if you spend too much time away from your desk. You can't really work on what you want, and you're serving the company, so you can end up feeling like a cog in a massive machine, and it doesn't really feel like you're progressing or making a real world difference. At least it didn't for me. The other thing as well is there are people who can gatekeep your career. Not everyone's like this, but it can happen for whatever reason. If the company isn't growing, there could be malicious reasons, legit reasons, doesn't matter, but it can happen. In a PhD, it's not really like that. They want you to flourish. You're your own boss to some degree. You still have to report to your supervisor and things like that, but that's just to make sure that you don't get lost in the work. You're the planner and the conductor, which is a nice thing, but it also comes with a burden, which I'll touch on a wee bit in the next few slides. I hinted that before, you're given time to learn, and you'll be given opportunities not afforded to you in the industry, like the chance to travel. I've been not to anywhere exotic yet, over to England a couple of times, but I didn't get that 4 years working for the last company, which again, it's not, they're not, I can't think of the word, but they don't have to send me anywhere. It would be nice to though. And as mentioned, you get an opportunity to make real world change. This is kind of a summary of the last few slides. I want to touch on the ugly side of things. This is again down to perspective. So there's a lot of reading. If you like reading, it's great. Again, a lot of reading at the start, not so much as it goes on. The workload can be feast or famine. There was a bit of a lull between Queen said these checkpoints, so initial review and differentiation, so 3 months and 9 months. There is a lull at the 6th month bit, so it does take that peaks and troughs sort of flow of things. If that's the way you like to work, fine. If it's not, it could be a bit annoying. Too much free food. I didn't think this would be an issue, but I'm a wee bit lazy. I don't like to exercise too much, and I can't turn down the free food. And publishing, depending on your area, you could come into an area that is full of papers, and it's very hard to find that niche area to go into, which can be a pain. Although if you're getting up to speed from scratch, it can be good because there's plenty to work from. On the other side of that, if you go into an area where there's no publications, it's great because you can find that niche area and you can sort of aim for that. The downside is it takes you a bit longer getting up to speed if you're not experienced in the area. What do you learn? This is stuff I've learned that probably isn't, the first 2 points aren't highlighted enough, I don't think. Time management and project management, they're probably two of the most important skills that you learn. Public speaking, critical thinking, and most importantly, you learn from your mistakes. I don't have time to go into one of my mistakes, but if you want to, I can talk to you afterwards about that. How would I describe it? A range of adjectives. Like everything, it can be all of these things, all of them at the same time, believe it or not. It can be stressful when something doesn't work, and as soon as you get it working, it's exhilarating. So that's how I would describe it. It can be all those things, which is good because it gives you a good mix. The most important question I had, which I probably needed from someone, and hopefully I'm going to be that person if you're thinking of doing this, can you do it? That's one of my favourite quotes of all time from Back to the Future. Now there's a debate whether Doc Brown said it first or Marty McFly or George McFly. I think Doc Brown said it first because of the timeline weaves about, but if you put your mind to it, you can accomplish anything. So I would say yes, take a chance. Even if that means switching jobs, PhD, doesn't matter. If you put your mind to it, it will work out. And if it doesn't, then you know it doesn't, and you'll learn from it and you'll be stronger for it. That's me. I'm 18 seconds over by my watch, but then this did crash in the middle of it. So if you have questions, see me after, give that a scan. It'll take you to my Linktree page. I can't remember the name of the app there, but yeah, that's everything. Apart from the research, you'll learn a lot about yourself, so good luck.